Hello, friends. Welcome to Nimal Bang. I'm Piyush Jain, and today, in a series of our budget conversations, we are bringing to you another one. Here, we actually are going to talk about aspects of budget, what we could be expecting. Also, we'll try and discuss from the perspective of legal angle. Also, there are different parts to contract resolutions, dispute mechanisms, what we can expect from the perspective of PLI schemes, and also a host of other measures where actually perhaps finance minister could be addressing in this budget. Let me now welcome our guest, who is an expert in this field, the founder of Rastogi Chambers, Mr. Abhishek A Rastogi. Abhishek ji, welcome to the show.
Hi.
So let's start from the perspective. This is a budget, vote on account, an interim budget, not a full budget. The full budget would be coming somewhere around July, like 5 years back. In this budget, what is your sort of top view expectation? How much loaded this budget can be in terms of any reforms or measures? How we should be expecting?
I think this budget would be more from the perspective of laying the roadmap ahead. See, while it may be an interim budget, it will show the intentions of this government for the next 5 years and the plan which it needs to implement in the next 5 years. So, while there may not be any significant statutory changes which may happen as of now, as we speak in this budget, but there will be broad policy announcements which will certainly happen, which will provide the roadmap for certain new sectors as well, be it the technology sector, be it cryptocurrencies, be it new age technology, be it artificial intelligence, and things like that. So I think from that perspective, these announcements will be very important.
Right. So let's start actually. Before I go to other areas, let me start straight away with the new age technology, or I would say renewable power. It has been since many years, but now actually we are seeing the affordability is picking up so much that it is now coming into mainstream. Renewable also actually holds a very significant focus because just few days back, Prime Minister actually announced that they're looking at rooftop solar policy. Target is 10 million households. Then we are also looking at FAME policy, that extension is expected. So again, that relates to automobile industry expectations. But broadly, from a legal structure, from the entire sectoral expectations, what is your sense? What we should be expecting and what needs to be done?
See, the vision of our Prime Minister is very clear towards environment and towards social responsibilities. And when it comes to pollution, I think he has made a very, very clear statement that India would not leave any stone unturned. Now, if that policy has to be achieved, if that objective has to be achieved, then it is imperative that we today take those steps. So, for instance, if these e-vehicles have to become a success in India, there are requirements to give appropriate incentives to the sector because the cost has to come down in the initial phase because these costs of manufacturing is pretty much exorbitant now. And if India is to become successful in the coming next 5 years, the government has also realized that the import of crude oil has to reduce because India pays lot amount in terms of the balance of payments and the foreign exchange when we import the crude oil. So I
Sure.
think the import with respect to crude oil and gold will be two aspects which will have to be taken into care. So now, what is an alternate to the crude oil import are these initiatives of the government, the solar energy, the wind power energy, and the electric vehicles, keeping in mind that these are still some of these sectors which are new. There are a lot of hurdles and bottlenecks which the sector is facing, and hence it is hoped that this budget clarifies lot of those aspects which are under dispute. So what happens with respect to fame, under what circumstances these have been denied to the players, will that somewhere come into play as far as the policy announcement is concerned? Similarly, what happens to the PLI schemes and the ROTEP? These will be the important aspects which I think the industry is keenly waiting for.
For FAME, what has been the issue? Like, what needs to be addressed, according to you?
See, as far as ROTEP scheme is concerned, which gives benefit to the Indian exporters when they export, there are certain ambiguities and there are certain restrictions. And these restrictions sometimes happens in a very arbitrary and ad hoc manner. So for instance, if you see the export of rice, the goods were moved from one category to the prohibited category, but still the exports were allowed. So under such circumstances, would export of sugar be eligible to the ROTTEP benefit, which is the objective of the government under the foreign trade policy? We argued this matter before Gujarat High Court, and we are arguing before several courts. We feel that this benefit must be given. The courts have interfered and given this benefit. These benefits are largely now started coming to the sector. So I think these initiatives of the government, when they want to incentivize Indian exports, but with which come with some conditions which make this arbitrary, which ensures that the objectives of the scheme are defeated, have gone to the court. So we feel that this is the right time for these policy announcements to happen, so that these benefits to sugar exporters, to rice exporters, etc., the benefits are not curtailed, and the Indian exporters continue to gain that momentum, and it will help the country in balance of payments as well.
Right, and from the perspective of exports, we have also heard a lot of there has been a lot of pending litigation from the customs side also. Is there anything which the finance minister can do in this budget to perhaps ease out the sort of addressable mechanism? Like what can be done?
See, today the Indian importers are also facing a lot of hassles when these imports happen. We have taken some matters to the court where testing and retesting of goods are under question. Whether testing should be allowed, and this is in case of fabric which are imported, and whether retesting must be allowed. What is the best way to do a market survey? Can there be certain sort of deadlines which could be imposed, because goods deteriorate at at times at the port? There are notifications by the board for specified goods, and in spite of those notifications for specified goods which want to ensure that the imports happen in a time bound manner, lot of times these imports are delayed. And then when even the provisional release of goods are happening, the importers are being asked to pay money by way of bank guarantee, which blocks the money and defeats at times the objectives of the advance authorization scheme. In fact, we are handling a lot of these cases where bank guarantee has been asked under for these provisional duty release of goods, or even for EPCG licenses. So I think those create bottleneck. And if there are certain guidelines which are issued, and see, the endeavor of the government is very clear, the objective of the board, the policy framework is very clear, but sometimes at the executive level there are problems which happen. And if India has to succeed and make India a manufacturing hub, it is important that all of these cross border transactions, be it imports or exports, have to be given special treatment.
Absolutely, and perhaps let's hope. I think something happens there. Similarly, is there something which can be done on the GST disputes also, or that is largely a subject of the GST Council?
No, I think this is a very, very interesting question. And today we have more than a crore of GST registrants in the country. Uh, it is also the endeavor of the GST Council and the Ministry of Finance that disputes are resolved at the nascent stage as early as possible. And hence, there have been lot of circulars, there have been lot of clarifications. We have taken more than 500 writ petitions to the court, but GST Council and the government has always come out with pragmatic solutions to address matters for industry. And this was bound to happen, because this reform is something which is very big, which is very unique, which has happened perhaps as one of the milestone reforms. So this was bound to happen. But as a proactive step, GST Council has been taking, and the government has been taking lot of measures. Now, what remains in this endeavor to reduce litigation and to provide certainties is the formation of the GST Council, GST tribunals. The government has made appropriate announcements, but it is not an easy task. The industry today is waiting for formation of these GST councils for a reason, that the matters have already gone to the appellate level. Now,
Right.
if the matters have gone to the appellate level, there are no uh, judgments passed by the appellate level. And if these judgments are being delayed, then there is delay in justice. If there is no appropriate tribunal, then the matters go to the jurisdictional high court, and high courts will at some stage be flooded with these appeals by way of writ which will come to these high courts. We have taken matters to the high court where we have got stay from the high court in light of the pending litigation which is there, in terms of the pending pendency of the tribunals which is there, and hence many such matters may go to high court. But yes, the answer is that formation of these GST tribunals must happen at the earliest, so that the litigation is removed or solved at the tribunal level, and courts and high courts are less burdened with such litigation.
Looks like I think perhaps a lot of work perhaps industry is expecting from the perspective of contract resolution and also pending litigation resolution. But staying on the course, I was hearing from again fintech veterans where they were saying that fintech industry is seeing a lot of boom from the perspective of new technology, new age businesses, new startups, and the application is happening across sectors. It's almost sector agnostic. You're seeing fintech getting applied in every sector now. What's your sense from the legal perspective, from the perspective of structure? Is this something which needs to be done there by the government?
I know. I think government is playing a very important role, and the government is maintaining a very fine balance between regulatory approvals, uh, removing of bottlenecks, and at the same time ensuring that these legal statutory framework is in place. So when in such situations there are a lot of cross-border transactions, etc., ED has played a very important role to regulate from the perspective of FEMA and PMLA. We have seen some brilliant officers cracking down cases using artificial intelligence and tracking those cases where money laundering has happened. The question may come whether it's a scheduled offense, what is the quantum, whether actual laundering has happened, are there any reconciliation gaps. But today we are proud as a nation to have some brilliant officers in ED who would use artificial intelligence to track transactions when it comes to transactions with the holding company and the subsidiaries located outside of India, examining the data from by way of artificial intelligence, then reconciling that data with the banks or the authorized banks. So what we are today saying is that while the government wants to promote these businesses, the new ventures, etc., but at the same time, there will be zero tolerance when it comes to issues like FEMA and money laundering. And that's why ED has very important role to play, because we know for a fact that the transactions may happen with cryptocurrencies. Now, I
Yes,
am not
yes.
forming an opinion for or against cryptocurrencies. But if the cryptocurrency is used for money laundering, then my opinion is very clear that the government has to be strict. And that's what government has been doing. So, regulatory framework for artificial intelligence, regulatory framework for all of these aspects related to new tech business, whether it is artificial intelligence per se, etc., will be on the back of the mind of this government. And I think from that perspective also there could be some structural announcements which may happen, so that these new tech companies, fintech companies, Indian service exporters, cryptocurrencies, artificial intelligence, etc., they know the roadmap for next 5 years. If they want to invest something in this, they must know that if you want to operate in India, you would not be able to operate in India if you are not following the law of the land. And I think that statement is very clear, that statement is very bold, and I think that will make a lot of difference, because it will show that while this government want, and for that matter even online gaming, now
Yes.
government wants to make a very very clear statement that you have to adhere to the laws of the land, be it money laundering, be it online gaming and the tax transactions out of it. And that's the key. So that policy announcement of broad framework will be very very important in this budget to watch out.
Absolutely, something interesting to watch out for. But apart from these, what are your own sense of expectations from the budget this time?
So I think there will be some populist announcements, and I don't see those as anything wrong. So my expectation is one on this direct benefit transfer scheme, which is at 6,000 rupees now. It is
Hmm?
expected to be increased by about 50%. So it may become 9,000 per person. Now,
Sure.
the question is, and at the same time, we are expecting that the capital expenditure, there would be about 10% incremental announcements with respect to capital expenditure as well. And if that happens, the government would need several lakh crores. So about 1 lakh crore for capital expenditure and another couple of more for this direct benefit transfer scheme. Now, if that has to happen, the moot point which comes is that how robust is our tax collection? If we see the tax to the GDP ratio, the tax to GDP ratio is significantly good today at 6.11%, which means that over the last 10 years or 9 years, it has constantly increased and has come from 5.62% to 6.11%. Interestingly, what has also happened is that the number of taxpayers under direct tax has significantly increased from 3.8 crores, and just the next year it increased to 7.78 crores. The tax collection has also increased from 6 lakh crore to 16 lakh crore, which means that there is huge revenue collection, more than the expected as far as the direct tax is concerned for the last financial year. Now, if that is the reality, and which these numbers are all announced by the government can, at this stage, make some of these announcements, like increasing the limit for direct benefit transfer scheme or the capital expenditure. So, it is expected that there will be some announcements with respect to increasing these limits, and rightly so, because the government can now spend a larger chunk of money because of better compliance, because of better collections. And even if we talk about the collections on the indirect tax side, the tax collections are robust, where on an average it used to be 1 lakh crore a month. The figures have gone up even to 2 lakh crores a month as far as GST collections are concerned.
Absolutely. Across direct, indirect, GST, everything is robust.
Yeah, it's robust.
Sure, sure. Please continue.
So I think from that perspective, there will be some leeway for the government to make these some of these populist announcements, and I don't see anything wrong in that, because if the government has revenue, the spending has to happen as well. So there will be focus on capital expenditure. There will be focus on infrastructure development. There are a lot of projects which need to be completed in the next 4 months. I think the focus will remain there. There will be tight and tough deadlines for the contractors and subcontractors to meet. But I think the focus and endeavor will remain that these deadlines are met, infrastructure and capital expenditure is taken care of.
Well, that's the consensus expectation. A bit of increase in the spending towards farm through Kisan Nidhi scheme, a bit of focus from the perspective of PLI scheme, higher capex spending versus the last year. Last year itself was a historical budget announcement of 10 lakh crore plus capex. So more capex, that perhaps is something which industry is looking forward to. And I think the most important, which Abhishek ji talked about, is some attention towards dispute resolutions mechanism across the courts, with the customs, whether again GST related disputes or commodity related, perhaps is something that the industry is looking forward to. With all those insights, thanks a lot, Abhishek ji, for coming on our show and giving us insights on the budget expectations, and we look forward to getting in touch with you again post budget.
Thank you. Pleasure was all mine.
And with that, dear viewers, hope you enjoyed this conversation. Thanks a lot for watching us.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to never miss an update from Nirmal Bang.